Hello everyone! Today we are back with yet another submarine test. The TST, aka the test server, just went live today, and I once again got them to experiment with various classes, playing both submarines themselves and against submarines. And once again things have been changed, but there are still major core issues. First of all, the bobbing on the surface is largely gone, so I'm very happy about that. You can no longer just sit at 5.9 meters, and then if someone threatens you, you go down to 6 meters or 6.1 and you're basically safe. Surface level is still 6 meters and above, but you actually take damage all the way down to 10 meters. So you still kind of do the bobbing, but not in the same extent, because you have to dive significantly deeper and you can't just quickly duck underneath the shells like you could earlier. So that's absolutely a good change. I am pushing quite aggressively into the cap. The ships are of course quite fast, and this thing actually has 11.5 chem torpedoes. So I line up on the New Mexico, and American player playing the New Mexico. I launch both set of torps, and here we have some changes, namely the new ping mechanic. In the past, you would ping the bow and the stern of the ship. One ping would be hoping, second would be ignoring torpedo protection. I don't really like the concept of ignoring torpedo protection. I will get into that later. So I let my torpedoes travel. You have the white line indicator, so you can use them like normal torps. And honestly, I help my DD cap the objective, and now I'm already turning away. Note that it doesn't matter which way you're pointed, you can ping in every direction. It's only one direction where you can launch torps. I hit him with a single ping and he goes undetected because my DD smokes up. I have to fully surface in order to spot proper. If I hide at basically level 1 like I'm right now, I can't really see him, so I have to surface a bit more. He does get spotted, and I aim for the same point. You see that highlighted part? I aim for the same point, and if you hit the same point twice, well, you get ignoring torpedo protection, which is what happened, and I landed 4 torps and all 4 of them were citadels. So that's basically a New Mexico who just, well, 3 minutes into the game, he just lost basically all his health, and he can't really recover much of any of it using healing. First of all, I think there are major issues with the ping. First of all, this is me only playing. I've only played one day. Like, this literally came out today. I've only played a few hours, and I already find myself fairly good at landing those double pings on the targets. Especially battleships that are quite large and quite slow and so forth. It's not exactly difficult to get the double pings on them. The other issue is that, well, you can do what I'm doing, which is you launch the torpedo and you let it travel very close to the target until you quickly double ping in succession. And that leaves the target with very little warning of what is going on. Even that would be somewhat more acceptable, but there's also issues with how the ping is presented to the player. I'll show you later from my Fuso's perspective, but the warning you get upon being pinged is basically not there. You're not being informed at all. When you're RPF'd, you're informed. When you're Hydra, you're informed. Like, usually you're informed in multiple ways, but from pinging, you don't get much of a warning or indication at all. Another double ping, this time on a cruiser, and torpedoes once again ignore his his torpedo protection. He does manage to slow down and turn out and dodge this one, but just an example of, generally speaking, how quickly you can pick up the mechanic. So not exactly particularly challenging in that sense. There are other issues. You are you're more vulnerable to DDs now, which I like. That is a change. They spot you from further out, and they've always been a big threat. But there are still issues like the fact that, well, your torpedo arming time is very low. So, in fact, sometimes I just go and YOLO DDs. And you have the advantage of being able to launch torpedoes directly at them, whereas they have to give broadsides to use theirs. There are, of course, DDs with front guns that can deal some decent damage to you, but even that is kind of iffy at times. Once again, launch the torpedoes, give them plenty of time to travel, not in a hurry in any way. And I decide now is a good time to go because he's turning in, so we go for the first ping. Now they're homing in. And then I go for the second ping, and if it hits the same spot, it does. Now it will ignore his torpedo protection. My job is done, and I start disengaging because there's a DD there and there's all sorts of threats around. Now, how long a target stays lit from the pings depends on what class or what nation you're playing. Are you playing Americans, Russians, and so forth? But the Americans have a very, very long duration ping, so if you land both of them, it's just very effective. He turns in to dodge. He mitigates some of it. I could have delayed the ping longer, honestly, instead of giving him the warning, but you get the idea. The basic gameplay, not really that special. Different consumables depending on different nations. The Soviets get a heal, the Americans get a speed boost, and the Germans get a hydro. So somewhat, I guess, some sort of national flavor going on there. You see the way I'm RPF'd? I like this kind of information, well, honestly, I should just show you the Fuso clip. I'll show it after this, just so you guys can get an idea of when you think that some of these ships are not reacting. It's actually really hard to notice that you're being pinged. Sometimes the ping goes right past you, which is a big issue. They have added new ways of new ways for ships to deal with submarines, but I feel like they are quite inadequate. They're not really strong enough. In fact, in a battleship, I had a DD hunt me, and honestly, as long as the DD isn't the submarine isn't a complete potato, you will struggle to get anything done on him. Once again, first ping out on the felt. You generally want to hit the citadel area because, of course, that's the only way you can get those sits. First ping out, they're homing. Second ping out, and once again a double hit. And they will ignore his anti-torpedo protection. He tries to turn out to dodge, but they home until 1 kilometer's distance when they start going straight. Actually, those look like they homed all the way, I'm not sure, but double citadel and the battleship is down. I feel like this is gonna make playing BB so damn awkward. Like, you're just target practice. And the reload is very quick on these torps as well. This is tier 6. I mean, the range, the damage, everything about it. Sure, if you don't get citadels, the damage isn't quite as impressive, but the ships being forced to angle in just because they get a ping is already painful enough. Like, you have to angle before you see the torpedoes, because if you wait until you see the torps, it's too late. This is one of the few times I actually mess up. I land one torpedo, or one ping, he starts turning in, he turns in sharply, and I don't hit the same spot in time, so I only do 13,000 damage and cause a flooding. And then I'm already got the second set of torpedoes out, already on the way, and the same thing goes on and goes on and goes on, and this entire time, of course, I am completely undetected, so the battleship doesn't really have any real counterplay going against me. I'm not a fan. I'm really not a fan of, like, what exactly is this going to bring to the game? What is this going to bring to the table? I got the ignoring torpedo protection. He's trying to turn in, but it's too late, and we get another citadel and yet another flood. And that Bayern is absolutely going to go down. These ships feel stupid. And what I'm worried about is this is only tier 6. And already the damage output against BBs feels very easy to apply the damage, it feels very hard for them to avoid the damage, and the actual counterplay that the battleships have is largely dependent on the teammates, and even then it's questionable. I feel like right now these ships are they're overtuned. Overtuned in multiple different ways. I don't go for the Farragut, I'm just spotting him, of course. He's trying to aim for me, but he needs to shoot HE, and generally you want to aim for the dot. You don't want to aim for the health bar. Like, this is another thing that I don't like. Technically it says I'm on the surface, and I'm on the surface level, but you can clearly see, well, I'm not on the surface, am I? There's no real ship for him to target. He has to go entirely based on the UI to shoot me. There is no indicator of what the hell he's shooting, except the UI telling him there is a threat here. And this is another thing I really don't like. Like, they modeled the entire submarine, at least force them to surface, at least force them to sit on the surface to get something done. He intercepts my ping, which is a bit annoying, but once again, you don't need a ping to land the torpedoes. They are quite narrow, and even nose in the New Mexico eats both of them, despite angling basically perfectly in against them. But that's another issue that I really have, is that the other players get no visual indicator on what to shoot. And that is something I complained about the last time in this test as well, is that what you're shooting is an UI element. You're not actually fighting the ship, you're fighting a dot on your screen that says this is a submarine. When in any other ship you can aim for specific parts, you can try to disable the torp tubes on ships, you can try to break their turrets, you can just go for citadels if they give broadsides. When you're fighting submarines, you're just fighting this one dot on the map. And I just feel it's a terrible experience to play against them. It kind of feels like fighting against planes or something. Well, it's reinforced sector, hope for the best. It's not a whole lot of gameplay elements going on there. Here I was showing the chat things you can do. I send one set of torps to the left, another set of torps to the right, and then I let them travel for a bit before I send out a ping. And what of course happens is that once you ping something, both sets of torps start homing in on the target that you pinged. And what this means is that you can essentially create your own cross torpedoes. I didn't perhaps execute it perfectly, but it gives you an idea of the type of things you can do. And of course, imagine now at high tier if you maybe can send out 3 sets or 4 sets, and then you got 4 sets coming in from every direction, and they're all homing in on you, and that submarine himself is creating that cross torp. In this case, this bot player, he slows down to dodge 1 set, and then the second set of homing torpedoes comes in, and it's too late for him to evade them at this point, and blap, he gets killed. So it feels a bit silly, doesn't it? Like, I understand it looks silly, and honestly it feels silly as well. Obviously there are people of different level of skill and so forth, and I saw some people say that they feel the subs aren't quite powerful enough, but trust me, playing against a good player in a submarine is going to suck. It is absolutely going to suck. The Gaede is going for my carrier, and because it is a Gaede, note that Gaede, of course, the German gimmick is strong AP, but pretty weak HE, and it also doesn't have a very good gun set up for shooting straight forward. The other submarine is trying to torp me, but I'm just dodging around and juking around them. So I decide I'm going to turn in and I'm going to fight him. Another thing that really sucks is that AP doesn't really do anything to you when you're sitting in this state, because they kind of have to hit your ship directly, and it happens incredibly rarely because you're so small, so you need that HE splash to actually get anything done. So I've just YOLO'd battleships on the surface, and if they don't switch to HE in time, they don't do anything. Look how close these torpedoes are. So I'm just basically going right at him. And what exactly can this guy do at this point? Not really anything. I go right at him, my torpedoes instantly arm, and I delete the DD well, he was supposed to directly counter me. Now, if they manage to avoid that frontal thing, then they of course have a huge advantage. I used my G ability, that's kind of an acoustic ping that basically shows everything around you. A bit of UI bugs the way I'm pinging this guy, trying to nail him with my back torpedoes. But at this point, this game is basically over. Underwater, there seems to be a lot of bugs with how the torpedoes and pings go against other subs. I've had torpedoes go just straight through submarines. The pings seem to go higher than where you're aiming. Like, there's a fair bit of issues with the underwater combat. It's really buggy, but even then, there's just so much foolishness, or just so many stupid decisions being made that I don't really agree with. I did try playing Battleship against submarines, or just Battleship on the server, and well, I can show you guys. There's a Gaede pushing in to the smoke, and this is the new basically anti-submarine warfare thing. You call out the plane, you got a 60-second cooldown, it recharges, call in planes, and they fly over there and they drop depth charges. The problem is, at any sort of range, it takes them ages to actually get there, something like 14-15 seconds. So a submarine that moves is going to have a fairly easy time of just evading those. And, well, they're generally not going to get close enough to you to actually be spotted. They will avoid it. As you probably noticed, I actually did damage. You can actually use those planes to deal damage to surface ships. They don't appear to be spotting. I've tried to see if I could spot their islands. That was one of the first things I tested. But they do deal damage to surface ships. And this, of course, really sucks for DDs. Another thing I really hate, by the way, you can't see what depth the submarine is at unless you target him. I was about to say, though, he's actually going for the surface. You see, I want to shoot the dot. I can't see the ship, but I want to shoot that dot there, because that's the UI element I'm targeting. And I shoot the dot, and I get rewarded with damage. kind of a stupid mechanic because now he's technically on the surface. I call in that depth charge thing, but as mentioned, he's kind of just evading out of it, and it takes so long for the planes to arrive that, well, all the damage I've really dealt is with my guns, and not really anything using the depth charges. I was going to say that you can actually use them to hit DDs in smoke, which well, you can hit any surface ship, but they seem especially good against targeting DDs in smoke, which I'm not sure if it's intended, but it seems pretty stupid. Just an extra thing for DDs to be aware of, another threat, another thing that can deal with them, another thing that can punish them, on top of course, having to hunt submarines in general. So, not sure what the idea here is here. I see the Ismail on the right, so obviously expert loader AP, and I turn around my ship with the idea of targeting this Ismail and getting some citadels in. Shots are out, and this thing has recharged, so I drop it. I sadly don't get any sits, but you see that? The torpedoes are homing, and they are actually already ignoring citadel. That's right. Did you guys see any sort of notification? Did you see any sort of information from the UI element? I land 3 depth charges, and they do basically nothing, even though he's at 15 meters of 50 meters under the water, aka not in the safe zone. The guy that kills me, and well, I trade right back. But if we go back and actually look at that, that highlighted one of the major issues I have right now with being pinged by DDs, and that's the fact that the UI doesn't tell you a damn thing about being pinged. If you go back and look at it, you can actually see that he pinged me underneath the front turret. He pinged me right underneath the front turret. Well, one of the two, the second turret, he pinged me right underneath it, and while I was calling in the depth charges and targeting him, he managed to ping me a second time, and it basically glowed red. But of course my ship was on fire, so it was almost impossible to actually notice it. There is no information besides that small thing on your hull, and most of the time you're not staring at your ship, you're paying attention to your surroundings, you're looking at what the enemy ships are doing, you're scanning for incoming torpedoes, you're looking at the minimap. You have so many things to look at that I don't know why they felt the need to completely skip giving the players some information, like if you're hydroed you get told, if you get radared you get told, if you're RPF'd you get told. There's information from everything, but these pings, like, even looking at the clip later on, trying to figure out when did he ping me and where, it was so difficult to notice that orange glowing thing hidden behind that fire. And that was basically the double ping, and that you're supposed to notice that in the heat of combat. That's never gonna happen. They really need to give, I mean, it's a ping. Give the player an audible ping sound. Bling! Like you have been pinged by the submarine. Let the player know that someone is targeting them. I don't know why they're keeping this information a secret from the player. Overall, I have liked some of the changes they've made, like making it so DDs outspot submarines, giving all of them some information of the submarine, basically getting a ping, there's a submarine nearby, like more information on the players, but there's still some serious issues with the subs. Namely that complete lack of information for the player, and I don't know why they keep insisting that the submarines shouldn't need to surface ever. I've had the most boring games ever with submarines just sitting underneath the surface all game without any real way of dealing with them, especially if I'm a submarine myself, because, well, they're not forced to surface. I don't know why. There you see, by the way, bearing taken on enemy submarine. So now you see that instant information and an arrow basically pointing where to go. And especially Royal Navy anti-submarine warfare is very, very powerful. So I know he's going to struggle to do much about me. So I'm obviously just going straight for him with my depth charges ready. I do like the change of adding more depth charges, basically giving more counterplay to various ships. I hate that I have to target the ship to know at what height he is. They should give this information to the player at all time. There's no reason to be hiding. Like, you see a sub, you turn your guns, you get ready to aim. Oh, he's actually 50 meters under the water. Also, the surface element of the sub should be actually on the surface. Why am I fighting an UI element? I want to be fighting fighting ships. This is World of Warships, not World of shoot the little dot on the map ships. It's just stupid. It doesn't feel... It's unrewarding as a gameplay element. In general, submarine warfare feels kind of silly. It's like, well, I sail on top of them and then I take a massive poop. And good job, you're dead. You're dead, submarine guy. There was not very much you could do about this. Like, I just kind of just sail on top of him and I keep just dropping these depth charges and I keep doing damage and I will eventually burn through his heals and damage con or whatever. But there also needs to be... The sub needs to be forced to the surface eventually. He can't just be allowed to sit there for absolute ages. It's stupid. I don't know if this is some sort of artificial way of extending the games. I thought they were going to write... They got a bunch of feedback on this, a bunch of complaints. Now he's surfacing. I still can't see him. He's 1.4 meters. I literally can't see the entire ship. But he's at least close enough to the surface that I can probably just drop torps on him and I do delete him. But, like, where is the player feedback? Why are they just withholding it for some reason? They got a lot of feedback about how terrible it is that the subs just sit underwater all game and just drag along games. I've had games that were won 10 minutes ago, but then we spent 10 minutes just chasing some sub who's sailing around on the bottom at 80 meters depth or something. Force them to surface. Why? Where's the oxygen? Why did you allow them to recharge battery underwater? The subs are plenty powerful enough. They don't need to be able to recharge while underwater. It's stupid. It's such an easy gameplay mechanic change to make the game more enjoyable for everyone involved. At some point the sub has to surface and he has to surface fully and then you can shoot him. There is some counterplay. Tada! Everyone has some fun. The sub avoids getting himself into positions like that. Tada! Like, he has to actually learn to play. I know Wargaming doesn't like the concept of actually forcing players to learn to play. I mean, look at carriers. They hate the concept of actually involving skill in some of their classes, but it's so stupid. The whole gameplay mechanic right now is just so stupid. Once again, you see the ping, bearing has been taken. I know the sub is somewhere around my left. I'm trying to get some damage in on the Ranger, but obviously my goal is once again to find this submarine and take another juicy fat dump on top of him. That's the anti-submarine warfare. I target him. Oh, he's actually really far in the water. I can't hit him. But then we just press the G, the magical button, and he will start taking damage. I mean... Visually, once again, the art department has knocked it out of the park. Subs look really cool, the underwater world is really cool. I like the depth charge animations, I like the big explosions, the splashes, and when you're underwater dodging depth charges. The visuals are once again great, but there is still a lot of work to do here. There is a lot of information that needs to be given to players both ways, and there is absolutely no reason to allow the subs to sit at the bottom of the ocean basically all game long. I know that Wargaming really wants to squeeze these ships into random battles already, where they don't belong. It should be a separate mode, but it is far too early. There are multiple bugs, just weird issues, and like... What was that even? I don't even know. Like, there are still a lot of issues that need to be resolved. And here's another issue that I don't like. What I mentioned, basically, most battleships, they will sail around with AP loaded. If you have AP loaded and you see a destroyer, well, at least you can do something. But a sub on the surface, as I am right now, I am on the surface. I'm doing quotation marks, which you can't see. But as you can see, he's actually not able to do any damage to me. So he's always going to have to load the HE to have any chance of doing anything to me. Honestly, some good ideas, but a lot of really questionable choices. Back to the drawing board, and generally speaking, don't hide information from the players. The more information being granted to the players, the better, at least as far as I'm concerned. But they do have this propensity to hide a lot of information from the players. There's still a lot of info that you can't even find in-game, like Sigma. Why is that not displayed in-game? To not confuse the player? Well, lack of information is more confusing most of the time. Anyway, that was all from me. I hope you guys enjoyed this brief look. By the way, no double ping, still absolutely decimated him. Nice damage output. I hope you guys enjoyed this, but once again, the submarines, they need a lot of work, and I still feel they are pretty damn silly. The ease of use has gone up, but playing something like a Battleship is just straight up terrible against these things. I really hope Wargaming takes that into account, because they do have a habit of ignoring how other people feel playing against the class. Smolensk is a kind of a key example of that, or just carriers in general. Oh, we want carriers to have fun. Oh, but what about counterplay? Oh, that's not so important. Like, please think of the future of the game and not just your quarterly earnings. Thank you. That was all for me. I hope you guys enjoyed it, and I will talk to you guys next time.